Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I hope that your 2023 is off to an amazing start. Today's topic, I want to share with you truths about insurance participation and negotiations that no one is talking about. And first and foremost, I want to be able to say thank you to those of you who have recently requested to join my group. And this live is also being broadcast to my YouTube channel, Your Dental Startup Coach. That's my YouTube channel. I started recently posting content on there, and I'm really happy and excited for those who have requested to subscribe. So, thank you to my subscribers for being part of my YouTube channel. And thank you for those of you who have recently joined my Facebook group, Growing Your Dental Startup. So, today I have been busy for the beginning of the year with the family business and everything. And I wish that I would have more support to be able to go more live. I do encourage everyone that is new to the group to go through the previous videos. I do have some amazing content here. If there's anything that you need to help you launch and grow your first dental practice, please make sure you reach out to me via email, messenger. I'm only an email or a call away, even if you don't see me posting here all the time. And I'm working on improving that. So, why did I decide? And thank you, whomever that is. Let me know in the comments if you're able to hear me and tell me your name and where you're watching from. Only because I'm doing this live and I don't have too much of a technical experience. So, if I'm ignoring you, I'm sorry. But this is a very important topic. You guys are really going to want to stick to the end because I am going to break down for you truths that no one is talking about when it comes to insurance participation and negotiations in your dental practice. The very first thing, and I'm going to tell you everything up front, and then I'm going to break it down for you to give you some examples of what I mean by that. Um, the reason why I decided to do this live and to focus on this topic is because I get messages all the time. I just received an email from a dentist that had been in an office for over a year, and he was signed up with only two insurances. And when I asked him the questions about how those insurances were selected, after he gave me the full breakdown, it was an absolute incorrect information that he was giving by experts, quote unquote. And so there is a lot of misinformation that is flying around, and there's a lot of misinformation, not that they're switching it, but that they're not telling you the exact process. And there's too many cookie cutter approaches that it's just like driving me insane. So the three truths that I want to focus on today's live is the first one is it's becoming more and more challenging for you to know who to trust and for you to be able to get the results that you need to have in order for you to start and grow a dental practice successfully. And for that reason, I have found that that people think that the grass is always greener on the other side. And um and the one thing that I will say, it is important for everyone to get support when it comes to dental insurance participation if you don't have the experience yourself. I've worked with more dentists that you can possibly imagine. And personally, before I started my company, I worked and I helped launch multiple dental offices. So I know what I'm talking about, and I'm still learning a lot more than I did when I was working as an office manager. So here's a sad truth about insurance participation and negotiations. Not everything that shines is gold. About 2 to 3 years ago, there was a situation, or there are a lot of companies out there that are simply not having a customized approach to the way that they're negotiating with insurance companies. And that's really hurting the bottom line of a lot of dental practices. So I want to share with you three examples or case studies of doctors that I've recently worked with that a have worked with somebody else, and how they really we're ending up cleaning their mess, the other company's mess. The reason why I feel that we're cleaning after this mess is because a lot of people are following the wrong experts. And a lot of the bigger groups and companies out there are really prioritizing who you know versus what that person knows. I have personally experienced in some of the groups that I am a part of that organically you can have a lot of knowledge. And I do see a lot of people bring on a lot of knowledge, but if they're not sponsoring, or if they're not affiliated, or giving some sort of, monetary value to the owners of the groups, of the moderators, they are not necessarily being promoted. A lot of leaders out there are focusing more on the monetary value to them rather than the actual value to their community. And I'll give you just a brief example. I was recently, not recently, I shouldn't say, but I speak to a lot of billers and people in the industry, and they tell me I am always constantly cleaning up after this preferred vendor for this group, and I just hate the work that they do. And so you have to take it with a grain of salt that not everyone that is out there being promoted actually has the they have the superficial knowledge, and they don't necessarily have the experience that is necessary to be able to give you the results that you need. And they are growing a lot. Like I just feel that it's a disservice to a lot of doctors that they're not really taking the right approach, because they're, again, focusing on the growth, more on their own growth, more than, thank you so much, whoever that is, for your comment, instead of focusing on what is truly necessary for you to give this to get the results that you want. So let me run over my examples. I had a dentist that reached out to me. She's working with a consulting firm, and we do startup consulting ourselves. When we had the discussion, she said, like, I wish I would have known about you before, simply because I didn't know about you, and so I worked with them, and so on and so forth. But she basically said, I was, when it was part of the process for me to start the credentialing process, I'm concerned that they're telling me that to complete the paperwork, and that the negotiations are going to happen a year later. And I was told to do my own research to find out what employers in the area, and I was told to pretty much just complete the paperwork, and that there is no negotiations and there's no strategy. So I said, let's look into your project, let's see what we can do. And lo and behold, she would have been given 40% lower fees had she followed the advice of this expert, and they're, paying a really high amount in the fees for her to get the support to launch her first dental practice. In perpetuity, this dentist would have otherwise gone through like low reimbursement for her startup practice, because of the way that this company focuses more on one aspect of the startup rather than what is important for the owner, which is, again, making sure the location is good. But not only that, like, you have to make sure you're positioning your fees correctly. So that's just one example. I had another example of another dentist who had been on a waiting list from a very much sought out company that has all the resources. And here's one of the things that saddens me about this whole thing, that when we are consumers and we are listening to people in all these social media platforms, we really take their experience and the people that they recommend, and we really want to follow their advice. But the one thing that I want you all to think about, that before you make any decisions, these companies, if you start to analyze, like every other company out there, this is their second business. This is kind of like their diversification of income. We're talking about your first dental practice, dental business, not like your husband has an office, you have an office, and then now I'm going to start a new, diversification of income and monetizing. And when they do a good job, I have absolutely no problem. I respect a lot of companies, but I've lost a lot of respect from a lot of companies because of the integrity, or rather lack of integrity, of the way that they're handling their clients, and no one is talking about it. So that's why in my group, I am making sure that I speak up and I say this. So the second doctor reaches out to me. She's like, my office is scheduled to open in September. I am told that this is the best company to work with. They have had me on a waiting list for God knows how long, and they haven't started the process. I have been recommended to speak to you by someone that has used your services. I don't see you highly promoted. I see your comments, but I don't see that anyone is recommending you. Ever wonder why? So I started the process. She said, they're telling me that it's going to take at least a year for the effective dates. And this is, the best fees that they can give me. Long story short, we were able to increase the fees that she had been waiting to be enrolled with, that other company that said that they were the best ones out there in negotiating fees, that we were able to beat the fees. So we were able to get her higher fees, and she's effective with 95% of the plans before she started her practice. So within the 6-month mark that we promised them, we actually were able to deliver. And so a truth is, or the fake news running around out there, is that it takes a year for you to join a network. Here is the debunking that lie. It doesn't take a year and a half for you to know whether or not you're going to be joining a network. To burst the bubble on some people, it's because I'm upset today. About 2-3 years ago, there was there were incentives that were given to us consultants for helping one particular umbrella company expand their margin. So I don't know if any of you are familiar, but like 2-3 years ago, there was this big hype about Carrington and the P60 fee schedule, and we're going to be able to guarantee that you're going to get $1,000 for a crown. Has anyone recently heard anyone guaranteeing $1,000 for a crown? It's non-existent. And the reason why is because there were companies that leverage the information that was shared by the umbrella company. Hey, we'll guarantee you this fee schedule for you to give to your clients to help us expand the margin. That was a bad business move by one of the umbrella companies. And when they caught on to it, then you are going to not be the negotiator that you claim to be. You're going to be the same average negotiator. So a lot of the companies and people that are out there wondering, why is it taking so long? And why is it that no one is, for me at the time, I was very shocked because I said, how can a dentist in the Bronx in a low income area have the same fees as a dentist in, let's say, Park Avenue in a more affluent area? The dentist in the Bronx will get the P60 fee schedule. The dentist in Park Avenue will get the same fee schedule. I look like a hero to my clients, but guess what? That dentist in the Bronx is going to spend a year trying to join the network through that relationship. And it's a disservice to them. And a lot of people use this opportunity and created noise around something that was not within their expertise, but rather something that they tap into and monetize from. So that's the truth. The negotiators that are out there are fake negotiators, because when it was the insurance company that was promoting this temporarily, guaranteeing a fee schedule, and you cannot be following a good fee schedule if you're in a low income area. Every office and every zip code is different. So the first truth about insurance negotiation and participation is the fact that there is a lot of noise. Now it's more and more challenging than ever for you to be able to know who to trust in this world. And being that all of the affiliate partnerships and kickbacks and all of that, a lot of sponsorships are taking place because these people have the resources. It's not their second business, it's their third. It's, again, just a new form of income. So be on the lookout. Take it with a grain of salt. Not every negotiator out there knows what they're doing, and they have a cookie cutter approach. Someone needs to speak out. My third doctor that I want to focus on today. So for my second doctor that transferred over to us, the timeline that they're telling you it's taking so long, it's fake. They're not necessarily getting the highest fees available, because we have proof that we have dentists that have recently worked with us that have gotten higher fees. And the reason why is because they're not really taking the time to do that, because they're focused more on the volume to be able to sell rather than to provide that valuable service to you guys. So what's another truth that I want to talk about today? The other truth is that a lot of doctors are confusing the topic of dealing with the insurance company and thinking that it's a one shoe fits all for all of the groups that are underneath that insurance company. So when it comes to insurance participation. The fact that you have a contract with Cigna doesn't necessarily mean that everyone within Cigna is going to follow the same fee schedule, or that every employer follows the same fee schedule. So the other truth that no one is talking about that I want to focus on today's live is that it's not a plan thing anymore. It is an employer thing. So when you're looking at your office, and if you are an existing practice, I want you to start paying closer attention to the employers that make up the insurances that are coming to your practice, be it Delta, Cigna, Guardian, MetLife, United Healthcare. And here is why. Every person, just like every household, has a different purchasing power. The same thing applies to employers and businesses. And now, after COVID, a lot of the employers have now gone to the negotiating table with the insurance carriers to renegotiate the premiums for their employees. And when you renegotiate the premiums for the employees, then what they're doing is they're reducing the benefits on the coordination level. So if before 5 years ago, the company was in a better financial position pre-COVID, they might have had 2 bite wings covered for the year. Now they're downgrading posterior composites to amalgam. And so when I go out there and I see in some of these social media groups, oh, this insurance company is now downgrading. It's not that insurance as a whole. It is the policy or the group policy for that particular employer. Is it going to be applicable for every patient that shares that same policy? Yes, it's going to follow that same system where it's going to be the employer. So here's the tip that I want you to get out of this particular, truth, that the insurance companies are no longer a one fits all type of thing. They have different tiers, they have different programs, and they're called PPO, they're called EPOs, but then they have different bundles, if you will, of benefits that the employers are on the constant basis trying to reduce costs. And one of the ways in which they're doing this is by going back to the insurance carrier and renegotiating their premiums. I have had dentists that have been with an insurance company for a while with a patient actively coming to their practice, and they reach out to me and said, hey, Maritza, this patient is no longer active. Is it because we were terminated? What's the situation? And it is the employer who had a threshold, and then the provider's negotiated fees exceed that threshold. So now the patient or that employer considers that dental office out of network. So for those of you who are watching and you're first and you have existing practices, know that I want you to, again, look at the patients that are coming in, see the employer that they work for. If it's an employer that has a good policy, then that's great. If there are any changes, this is why it's so important that on the ongoing basis, you always look out for changes in their policies, because the economy is making it where a lot of employers and companies are making these cuts. And to be completely fair, we all have different purchasing power as individuals, and so do companies. So a small company that has a certain level of purchasing power versus one that it's a bigger company, it's going to have the same insurance name, but their policies are going to be completely different. So don't generalize, or when you hear someone say, oh, this insurance company is doing this, I want you to take it with a grain of salt and understand that it's not the insurance itself as a whole, unless they do have, broad underwriting decisions, but it is typically the employer underneath that particular insurance company that it's making the changes that are being downgraded that affect the coordination of benefits with your patients. So that's the second truth that I want you to be on the lookout for. And to give you some tips around that, look for the employers that pay you well, and that their policies are good, and look how many people work at these companies so that you can then leverage the relationship with these particular employers. Not that you're going to discriminate against anybody else, but just understand and be strategic. I think it's more the strategy that you follow more than anything else. And I want to empower every doctor that it's within my network to be able to be strategic about growing their first business. So that's the second truth debunk that I want to share with you today. And I have so many. And the last truth that I want to talk a little bit about is that not every dental office or situation has to have the same process or the same the same method of growing. So again, one of my recent clients posted an anonymous post in one of the groups. She said, like I'm an acquisition and I started working with this company and I noticed that the fees, thank you. And I noticed that the fees are much lower than the seller's fees. So why is this happening? And again, going back to the first truth, that a lot of the companies that are being promoted out there and are giving leverage and a platform to grow and expand are not necessarily the ones with all the knowledge. They have taken advantage of previous opportunities. They didn't have substantial knowledge before they launched their businesses. They're learning as they go, and they have the resources and leverage to be able to go out and start become preferred vendors. They are sponsoring groups, monetarily supporting them so that they can, as an exchange, be their preferred vendor. And so you have to be really cautious with who you trust out there and take it with a grain of salt. So this last doctor that posted that comment in the group and came to me and said, like the fees are lower. And I told him to stop. I know I need to start the process all over. What can you do to help me? Again, I have been bombarded lately with so many doctors that have worked with the wrong company and now they're struggling in perpetuity with low fees for their businesses. And it's so frustrating to have to go through this. So for this doctor, we were able to basically retain the seller's fees. I said the good faith of your practice comes from sustaining those fees or improving them. So that truth is not every dental office or scenario is the same. There is a process and a strategy if you're a startup for negotiating your fees and how to do it. There is a strategy and there is a system and a process if you are an acquisition. And if you are an existing practice, there is a process that you need to follow to avoid, again, having the situation where you have patients not coming to you. You're being told, leave your direct contracts and go through a third-party contract without the detailed information of the pros and cons. So these are truths about dental insurance participation that not a lot of people are talking about. One, they don't have the knowledge. Two, it's not in their best interest. And you guys are the ones paying the consequences for the longevity of your business, while these experts are onto their third or fifth business as we speak. So take it with a grain of salt. So here's what I'm going to do. Today, I just basically laid out a couple of foundational topics that I want to go over with you over the course of the month. So next week, I want to go more in depth, and you guys let me know in the comments if you're interested in learning how to structure and negotiate your fees if you are an existing practice. I want to be able to lay down for you the 5 steps that you need to follow for you to renegotiate your fees and how to do it in a way that you're going to add 20-30% increase of your fees, and or that you strategically are able to increase the patients with the better paying plans so that you can leverage participation in the event that there's no room for negotiation or whatever the case may be. So I want you guys to be empowered and have the knowledge on how to take control of this within your practices and nurture someone in your team. So your homework is to, if you have any friends or colleagues or anyone that it's an existing practice, I want to schedule it for next week, Tuesday. I'm going to release the information here in the group to be able to make myself committed to a time and not do it on the fly. So that's my promise to you. But I want to start off this month and have a series of lives talking about the insurance negotiation and the 3 different major buckets: an existing practice, how to increase your insurance reimbursement, For an acquisition, the best practice is for you to be able to either sustain or increase the seller's fees and the process that we use. And obviously, for a dental startup, how do you strategically make sure that you are setting up your fees for success? Another one of those doctors that paid over $60,000 in consulting fees reached out to me, and when I asked him about the process that the company used to make recommendations about what insurance to participate with, it was a total mess. Doctor has the office currently closed, or at the time when we were first having a discussion, his parents were helping him with covering the overhead with their retirement money and from his associate position. So here is a dentist a year into his startup practice who paid a lump sum amount of money to a consultant expert group, and the recommendations that they gave him for how to strategically create the insurance mix, market the practice, hire the people, train the people was completely a disaster. And a year into his practice, he had no patients. He was answering the phones himself, no employees, and just coming into the office as he scheduled patients himself over the phone on the weekends with no dental assistant, just to be able to accommodate those patients. I do not want to hear stories like that anymore. This is why I am making myself an effort to just show up. If I don't show up as often as I want, because I'm running my company and my little ones and so many other things, do not hesitate to reach out. I'm only an email or a call away. You can go to my website, mdentcs.com. You can find me on social media, Maritza E. Duran. And I'm here to help and give you real answers. Even if you don't like it, I'm going to tell it to you like it is. I have proof that I get results, but I am no one's cheerleader. You're not going to hear what you want to hear. You're going to hear the truth about what it takes for you to start and grow a dental practice successfully. So next week I will see you, and let me know if you have any specific questions, but I'm going to share with you my process and my recommendations for renegotiating the fees in your practice, followed by an acquisition and the other one over the course of this month. Thank you again so much for listening in. Thank you for being part of the group and my channel. Welcome, and we will be in touch. Bye, everyone.